Okay, I think I'm live. So, what's up, y'all? DT2 Comics Chat here. We're here to do Flash Chat. Today, we're going to be talking about Season 6, Episode 17, Liberation. Flash Chat, for those of you that are new, Flash Chat is where, in lieu of doing a review for 1 hour on Tuesday afternoon, 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, I pose 12 questions, one question every 5 minutes, about the latest episode of The Flash. And I talk about what I think about the episode, and I talk about my answers to my own questions, and then I read those that participate live on Flash Chat on Twitter. So you can follow me on Twitter at DT2 Comics Chat. That's my Twitter handle. And then from 1 to 2 p.m., people come on my timeline with the Flash Chat hashtag, and we talk about these 12 questions concerning the latest episode. And this last episode was a trip. It was once again one where Barry was humiliated and everybody on Team Flash is just really stupid. But at least we did have some small movement on the plot, and that's only because the season has been cut short. I think they only have 2 more episodes left. So I think that this one, and then there's 2 more, and then that's it for season 6. And I don't know when they're going to be back filming again because of obviously the beer bug and everything that's happening worldwide. And if I was Danielle Panabaker and I just had a baby, I wouldn't want to be anywhere on set either, because I certainly wouldn't want to risk being exposed between all the people that are in the cast and the crew, and then take that home to my newborn child. So I don't know when they're gonna film again, and I don't think they do either. I don't think Grant or Candace or anybody has announced officially, because no one knows. They haven't made that decision yet. So I think there's only 2 more episodes in this season, and then that's it. So they kind of have to hurry up and bring things to a close. So in one aspect, in one way, I'm really glad about that, because many times the seasons are just too long, or they take a few ideas and they stretch them out over 22, 23 episodes. And that's why you get so much filler. That's why you get so much moving in circles. That's why you get so much stuff that doesn't make any sense. And that's why it's so frustrating. So it's good for a Sean J or a change to have something actually happen, because we have to wrap it up and bring things to a close. But with only 2 more episodes, the 2 biggest issues are what's going to be the fate of Eva, which is probably going to be she stays out here and becomes a new Mirror Master. And well, part 1, actually, there's 3 things. That's one. Thing number 2 is we obviously have to get real Iris and Camilla and Sing out of the mirror universe and back in the real world. So that's 2. But number 3 is burying this artificial speed force. So obviously it has to work. If it doesn't work, something will have to work, because you can't have a Flash show without the Flash, even though most of the time they do. But you can't continue to have the Flash not have his powers. So his powers have to be restored some kind of way. But now they only have 2 episodes to answer those questions. So the issue will now be, how well do they answer those questions? So I think I'm going to post my live stream on my Twitter. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just typing. I'm not talking. So anyway, sorry about that, everybody. So I was just trying to get my live stream link. Trying to get my live stream link on my Twitter stream. So if anybody wants to come on over, they can come on over. Okay? All right. So I probably need to go ahead on and dive into question 1. And here it is. Question 1 is, I know they're geniuses, and I know it happened too fast, which is probably why it didn't work, but still, didn't seem a little too easy for them to build their own Speed Force machine. Now, see, my answer to that question is, you know, they mentioned that it was based on Thawne's notes and Thawne's work and all that different kind of stuff. But I'm like, it felt to me just like when Tony Stark conquered the mysteries of time travel in less than 5 minutes. You know, because if they had this kind of capability, then some type of machine of this nature should have appeared before now. Now, what I mean by that is I know Barry had the Speed Force in his body, and there was no need for this kind of thing. But think about the possibilities, all the drama and the trouble Barry's been through with the Speed Force. What if they could control it or modify it, or if they had some way to affect how it affects him, or a lot of different things could come out of Speed Force controlling or modification technology, which again, I think would have happened. Before now, if they actually had the ability to do this thing. So I don't know. It just felt like it kind of happened just a little bit too easily, but that's just me. Okay, so let me see what you guys say. Chris Kofer fan says, good points. I think so. Critical Blast says, and if they can do it, why can't anyone else? Why would only Barry be able to access it? And what if they built a machine that Thawne later steals to become his Speed Force machine? Now, those are great points. Okay. So I need to respond to Critical Blast. All right. Oh, there was a pop. I thought, oh, is Airricks? Huh. What's up, dude?
Hey, can you hear me? I got to get my camera working.
Yeah. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. You know what's really funny? I thought about you during this episode. I said, I'm wondering what Eric is going to say about this one, because I'm looking at it and I'm saying, because you can see from a FlashChat question,
Yeah.
like, I don't know if you saw the beginning of my stream, but what I said was, because of the pandemic, and now that we have to end the season early, there's 3 issues. The main 3 issues are, number 1, why'd you take your video away?
I had to turn a light on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
so,
here you go.
So number 1 is like, what's going to happen to Eva? My theory there is that she's going to stay out here and become the new Mirror Master. And, you know, there's going to be some other stuff going on with Carver. He'll probably explode in a, you know, a big shower of glass. Number 2, we got to get Iris, Camilla, and Sing out of the mirror world back out here into the real world. Number 3, this artificial Speed Force machine, because you can't have a show about the Flash without the Flash, even though they do all the time.
Right.
But the Flash has to have his powers.
Yeah.
And now we've got 2 episodes to answer all those questions. So tell me what you think about that.
Oh, that's a lot. I don't think we're going to get all of them answered. I think that so I think since we're ending at not this episode but next one, I believe that Iris is going to be like the whole Eva Iris thing. I think that's going to be the cliffhanger, because I don't think they have time to wrap up that story. I think Eva's, I don't think they're going to defeat Eva. I think Eva's going to be it's going to be like left on like this. She's out there. She's the Mirror Master now, or Mirror Mistress, however they want to call it, running around, and they're just going to be stuck dealing with this villain they can't stop, you know? Because I mean, I would like for that to happen. I don't know. I feel like it's going to be rushed. And you know, it really sucks because apparently they did film quite a bit of episode 20. From what I heard, but they couldn't work it into the next step because 19 apparently, according to Eric Wallace, this is the episode that has the most in it. Apparently, even more than the finale was episode 19. So that says a lot about what we're going to be dealing with, you know, on the show and stuff. As far as like the artificial Speed Force, I'm kind of worried. I'm worried about that. The reason why I'm worried is I don't know how they're going to handle it. I want it to be. I would like for Barry to, to either have a speed force that he creates himself, like just through sheer will, and he has the speed force that he can share it with Wally, or he can share it with other people that he chooses to share it with. But I think they're going to go with something. I think tonight, with Godspeed being on the episode, we're going to find out that however Godspeed gets his speed, they're going to somehow make that a way to give Barry his speed back, because we know Godspeed's an artificial speedster. He's not using the speed force, obviously. So I think there's a key there. I think Godspeed and his creation is going to be one of the puzzle pieces, maybe the last puzzle piece, to give Barry his speed back. Because I don't think going into the last 3 episodes, they would want Barry to not have his speed. So it either has to be tonight or next week they would give him his speed back. So
in the comics, when they rebooted Hal Jordan yet again, remember, he created his own ring.
Yeah,
there were some great panels when he was talking about him using his own willpower and his own life experience, and he basically said, "I'm the Pan now. I'll be the Pan now." You know what I'm saying? But if they respected the mythology, a way to do it is Barry could have some residual ability to steal other people's speed. That is a Flash power.
Yeah, and
I would be very happy with that if all of a sudden Barry, because Barry's a little bit self-righteous, and he says, "You don't deserve the speed. You don't." If he took it, he's even more powerful. I could buy that.
Yeah.
But if it's any type of velocity 9 answer or any type of artificial answer, it causes more problems than it solves.
Oh, absolutely.
Because if you make a machine and then you just put it out there, is it passcode encrypted?
Exactly. Like you could give anybody speed at that point. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So then would it just be Wally or Jay or whoever else, or would it be anybody like Teen Lantern hacked into, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and the thing is, thinking about it now, I would actually be happy, and I know it probably wouldn't go well with the show because they want the show to revolve around Barry and Iris, but I would be happy with, like, if Wally showed up and he's like, I meditated and I figured it out and I know how to make a speed force, because we saw in the episode where he came back that he was very in tune with the speed force, more so than any character we've seen in the Arrowverse. So I think out of everybody, the person who knows the most about the speed force on a spiritual level is Wally.
Yeah.
And I mean, that kind of goes with the comics too. I mean, Wally definitely had that, the manipulation of the speed force down and things like that. But I don't think the show would follow that route. And it sucks because the Flash comics, as much as it is about Barry Allen, it's really about the Flash family. I mean, so many characters in those comics are important in different ways. And the show tries to do that sometimes. And then sometimes it doesn't manage to nail it on the head. But you're absolutely right about the artificial thing. If anybody can get speed, that's going to be absolutely crazy. You could make anybody a superhero. I have a question for you though, and this is something that's kind of boggled my mind a bit in terms of this whole artificial speed force and things like that. So with the death of the speed force, Barry is losing his powers. So was Barry a speedster hit with the dark matter situation, or was he just granted access to the speed force? Because it seems to me like he's still got some residual speed, but if he has dark matter in his system, then he should still have powers of some type. The speed force going away, I feel like that could disconnect him from time travel, or it could disconnect him from multiversal travel, but I don't know if it should take away like 100% of his speed. I feel like he should still have some speed left. So
this is what happens when you play fast and loose with the rules.
Yeah.
Because they've never made it clear as if the dark force matter enables access to this elemental force, and then it also determines how much of that force is in your cells. Remember, I brought up a question before about why is Jay Garrick losing speed because of age? Because age is not based on speed.
Right.
Age is based on access to the force. So if you're saying that, is it like the force in Star Wars? Is it dark energy burns your cells out? Does time, take away your ability to access it? Because it cannot be based solely on your physiology, because the human body can't move that fast.
Right.
You're pulling it as something else. And then if we're going to go the midichlorian route, you know what I mean?
Controversy.
Right. You have something in your system innately, and And then what they did with Captain Marvel when they turned him into Shazam, at least initially,
Mm-hmm.
they introduced this concept of living lightning, but they forgot to mention that they already said that that's what Flash was when he went back on the loop and became
Right.
lightning.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
So you got to, is it magic? Is it science? Is it character? Is it skill? Is it a combination? They've never definitively answered those questions.
And you know, they stopped talking about how fast he's going. Like in season 3, I think that was maybe a little bit in season 4. They kind of have stopped saying, "Oh, he's Mach 5, he's Mach 10, he's Mach 13, whatever." They've stopped doing that because they realized that with a bunch of writers juggling the show, you end up with inconsistencies. And that's one of the things I love about comics, though. For the most part, if you give, like, say, for example, Jeff Johns gets a run on The Flash, he gets 10, 15, 20 issues where he can do a story from start to finish. And that way, all that, the burden of the lore is on his shoulders and the world that he created. Whereas when you have a TV show, you have a lot of these different people writing episodes, and excuse me, if you have someone like Kevin Feige, like in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, who comes in and says, okay, you can do that, but you can't do that. You can do this, you can't do that. If you don't have somebody sort of overseeing the writing process, you end up with a lot of unexplained things and questions that just go unanswered, that I think fans would want to, you know, hear, especially about these superhero shows, because I think The Flash, out of all of them, reminds me the most of, like, I want to say like Star Trek in a way, with the technobabble and the science and stuff like that. Like they try to sort of explain things away on The Flash and come up with the reason why, which is what frustrates me the most when I'm watching the shows. They don't explain something, because I'm like, we didn't even explain part A and we're already on part B or part C or part D. And we used to do it the first 2 seasons. They did a really good job of trying to explain as much as they could. And it seems like they've kind of gotten away with that. And I think the writers, you know, like you said, is it spiritual? Is it magic? Is it metahuman? Is it other dimensional? Is he just a conduit for speed? Was he never really fast to begin with? I mean, that's kind of...
Because his whole biological family negates most of those ideas. Iris should have not have been able to absorb his speed based on what? She was not in an explosion. She didn't have any dark matter in her body. She was not genetically descended from metas as far as we know. But all of a sudden, that one episode with the purple jacket, she's got speed and she's mastering those powers. Just a few days of being a speedster. When Barry was in a coma for 9 months, the length of a pregnancy, for his body to absorb all that. Number one. Number two, Nora got her power genetically. So what does that mean? So that means now if I'm the child of a speedster, that means I have something innately built into my DNA that allows me to tap into the speed force, and it can be dampened. All that sounds like science to me.
Yes, I agree.
I don't see any magic there. So that's what I mean. It's just never clear. One more thing I also want to say. Many times TV showrunners, when they're dealing with superhero IP, they want to make their own thing so badly, they do a lot of shifts. Longtime comic fans immediately pick up on the shifts. For example, they have shifted Barry's personality to Wally's personality. Grant's Barry is much more like Wally. Wally is like Max Mercury. So they've shifted him.
I said the same thing when Wally came back. I said, this is like a Max Mercury story. Like, what are we doing here?
Right. And so when you do stuff like that, again, it shows that, you know, because they said from the beginning, like they did on Arrow, what is canon? The heck with canon. We don't need canon. And I'm like, no, yes, you do. Canon is a Bible for storytelling.
Exactly.
Every writer needs that. That's not unique to superhero IP. Think about Harry Potter. Okay, Harry Potter is a success precisely because of her attention to detail, of the fact that you get enveloped in that story world and you watch the characters you love grow through it because you understand the rules. It has no meaning if it has no rules. For the life of me, I don't understand why superhero writers don't get that.
I'm so glad you said that. You don't know how many times I've had to explain this to people when I'm doing reviews or I'm talking about shows. If you create rules for your world, then you are bound by those rules. If you break those rules and you don't explain why they're broken or why they don't work or why you did it, then you start to lose credibility in your writing because you're creating plot holes within your own world. And it's your responsibility to not do that. And superhero writers, they don't do it all the time. It happens with so many characters. And I'm okay if you want to sort of combine stories because you don't have enough characters to tell every single story, but it has to work. It has to work within the world that you've built. And so, like, if they want to make Wally sort of a Zen Max Mercury character, as long as if that's what you're going to do and you're going to go full like force ahead with that, I'm totally okay with that. But we didn't really see, like, Wally disappeared still like a hothead young guy or whatever. That he comes back as this Zen character. We get him for one episode. He ends up being amazing as this character, a character that I think would have been great on the show. And then he leaves again. And it's like, we had the opportunity to have Wally around. So this is my question with the whole Wally situation and the idea of the Flash family is, when Wally knew that the Speed Force was dying and he was so connected to it, and he knew you had to like minimize your usage of the Speed Force or the residual energy inside of you, or however you want to say this, that, and the other. I would think that he would want to stay and work with Barry to figure out a way to either bring the Speed Force back or build a Speed Force or something along those lines. I didn't understand his need to just up and leave, especially when he knew something was wrong with Iris. He mentioned it at the end of the episode. And that's another thing where it's like, there's so many cool stories that we could be getting, but then the writers sometimes shift towards stories that we don't really care much about. And where are the comic book stories? Like, I don't need soap opera stuff, and they give us that all the time. A little bit of it's okay. I'm okay with a little bit of it. Some characters lean into it more than others, but the Flash is a very, like, even though his relationship with Iris is important in the comic books, if you read the Flash stories, there's some of the best stories across all of comic books. I mean, ever. And so to take his character and continuously rehash or recycle or drop the ball on what's going on in the episodes in the season and stuff, I'm just so frustrated a little bit. And I try to tell people, like, the quality of the writing is not up to us, the viewers. It's the responsibility of the people who are doing the show. I like Eric Wallace. I think Eric Wallace has had some good ideas. I don't like some of the writing this season. That's the problem.
If you want a one-word answer, I'll give it to you.
Okay.
It's Twilight. When Twilight went from a book to a movie series to a phenomenon. And normally when that happens, if there's any type of commercial value in it, then everything around it tends to copy it, because they figure, number one, that everybody wants this, right? And number two, it can work in any medium.
Oh, God, you're right. You're right.
That's why once, dark and gritty Nolan Batman is even reasonably successful, now everything has to be that way. But with Twilight, they're like, well, people love these triangles, and people love this coming of age stuff, and people love this melodrama, and people love this kind of stuff, the make up, break up, make up, break up. You love that kind of stuff if and when you're adolescent. If you love it, because every adolescent does not like that or function that way. But that's the age and stage of life with which that is the biggest deal to you. But these are people, early 20s, mid 20s, late 20s, early 30s. These are PhDs. These are people that in alternate realities, Cisco was Tony Stark. And in another, on Earth 2, he was Tony Stark as a villain. He was And then Caitlin had her own pediatrician. These are people that actually had lives and had actually grown up, and we saw the versions of them. But because of the Twilight principle, just like the way this episode ended, now they've got to come all the way back down to 14-year-old angst.
With that scene with them touching the mirror and having that talk at the end of it. So 5 minutes. It was almost 5 minutes of the episode, because I looked at the clock and I said, "Oh, we got 5 minutes left. What are we going to get? Are we going to get something that's going to push the story along?"
For the episode that teases what's coming up.
And that's not what happened. We got a diatribe, love declaration from both characters talking to themselves in the mirror, because neither one of them could hear each other, which I thought was kind of ridiculous. I'm like, I get it. If you were actually talking to Iris, if you could see her and you could say these things to her, I get it. But they spent almost 5 minutes both repeating. I guess they were saying the same exact thing, because they kept cutting between the speeches, and it kind of flowed together. So, yeah.
To go back to what you said earlier with Wally, that was my exact reaction to what you said. I said, well, it seems like to me, if you've been somewhere and you learned how to chill and you learn how to manipulate energy, seems like to me you would want to teach Barry, want to make sure that Barry at least has access to that knowledge, and you would want to be sure that the other speedsters would be stabilized, and you want to help the world after the Speed Force is gone. He's like, well, gotta bounce. Like,
so I have another question though. So since the Speed Force is gone and the Speed Force exists outside of our dimension, and I'm pretty sure, because of the way it's been set up in the show, I mean, it's the show, so I could be wrong. But I'm pretty sure that the Speed Force that we know of is the one that exists for every speedster in the entire multiverse. They're all accessing the same Speed Force. So this means every Flash on every newly created multiversal Earth that we are not aware of all lost their speed now. And they may not have any idea why it's gone. So that's another thing, is that we've got this cool, like, that would be a story, like the death of the Speed Force would be a story in the comics where we would see other speedsters losing their speed and other stories of other speedsters, and they would all come together as a group to try and fix the problem, most likely. But on the TV show, since we only have Barry to deal with every single week, that's the only person that's even dealing with it at all. And I'm kind of curious. So with the Godspeed thing, we haven't seen Godspeed since the first episode of this season. We know he's an artificial speedster. Do you have any theories based on what we know so far to how Godspeed is moving at super speed? Because we know he's not using the Speed Force, and Velocity 9 is something that I don't think, it doesn't look like he's using Velocity 9. So what do you think it is? Do you think they're generating their own Speed Force with a machine, or do you think there's something else going on there?
Well, I'll give you my overarching theory. I think that Thawne is now set up as the Norman Osborn of this universe.
Okay.
So I think that he's been pulling strings behind the scenes for all the way back to season 1, just more on a higher level than we thought. I think that just like he was able to grant Nora access to that negative Speed Force, but they did it again like a Star Wars seduction of Anakin. Like, if you give in to your negative feeling, then you can, I'm like, okay, that's magic. That's not science. That's what I think is happening. I think that Thawne somehow, because remember, his whole thing was being able to separate from Barry, so his existence and speed no longer was dependent on Barry being the Flash. That was his original goal. Yeah. And he created his own Speed Force. So now I think somehow, because he is clearly still outside of time, because he shouldn't exist in any way, shape, or form.
Exactly. Yeah.
Needed by Thawne. But since he's there, I think he's able to grant other speedsters access to his negative Speed Force the same way he did with Nora. That's what I think is powering Godspeed, if it's not any.
Oh, that makes sense. I kind of wished, and I thought about this when they first mentioned Thawne's Speed Force. I kind of hoped that Barry would temporarily connect to the negative Speed Force, just so he had speed, so he could actually be the Flash while they create a real Speed Force for him to use. But that didn't happen, because I thought we would get like a negative Flash. I thought for sure we would see that. And I thought it was actually teased that we were going to get a negative Flash. And maybe the last 3 episodes of the season was supposed to be, the negative Flash. Maybe the big cliffhanger, based on what we saw in this episode, is that Barry doesn't get his speed back this season. Maybe he's not fast for the next 2 episodes, and the cliffhanger is the Flash is no more. Because I was kind of worried when he got stabbed in Liberation and with all the shards and stuff like that, that he wouldn't heal. I was like, how is he healing? Because he didn't heal previously, before he used up even more of his speed now. So
that's 2 questions I have on FlashChat. One question is, exactly how much residual Speed Force energy does Barry have? Yeah. Because it seems to be in flux during the whole episode, so we don't really know what he can and can't do, number 1. But number 2, when Iris turns into the T-1000 and she just basically stomps on him with her mirror food, I was like, really? I was rolling my eyes and laughing at the same time. I'm like, okay, you have to make up your mind. Okay, if Barry does have some Speed Force energy, the show has established he's literally faster than lightning. If you've ever seen actual lightning is so fast until thunder can't catch up with it. The sound of lightning is behind it. We've seen the freeze frame where Barry looks up and sees the lightning crackling. We've seen him generate his own lightning. If you're that fast, then T-1000 hours with all her mirror food and all that, no.
Something I noticed about that scene is when Barry was getting cut with the shards and she was the T-1000 stabby things or whatever, they were showing the shards falling on Barry in slow motion because it was for dramatic effect. But Iris was not moving at super speed. Like, I'm thinking, if shards of glass are falling, you'd have to be moving at super speed to do all of these, like, let me stab my arm in here, let me stab my arm in here, let me put my arm in there, because she was moving at normal speed. So I'm like, how is she stabbing Barry in this slow motion scene while she's standing over here moving at normal speed? She's not super fast. And on top of that, last time I checked, mirrors are very fragile and they break very easily.
Right.
So why was this mirror version of Iris like hard like a rock? Like she wasn't crystal or diamond or stone. She was a mirror reflection. So when she's fighting and she's like, I'm faster, I'm stronger. I'm like, you should be more fragile. You're a reflection of Iris.
Now, I said the same thing. I was like, they conferred onto her, and they did the same thing to Eva at the end of the episode. I'm like, they conferred onto Mirror Iris a bunch of power she shouldn't have.
Yeah.
One of them, like you just mentioned, is super speed. But the second one is basically Emma Frost power to take a diamond heart shape.
Yeah.
It doesn't have anything to do with being a mirror reflection.
Exactly.
Then also the idea of, because the Sentinels did it in X-Men Days of Future Past when they're stabbing through Blink's portal and they have their extension arm coming out the other side. But I'm saying to myself, in normal time, that glass would have just fallen.
Yeah.
So how do you do even, a little bit of what she did? And then the other thing is we saw Barry get cut in whatever kind of normal / speed time they're doing, because it wouldn't happen that way either, depending on the speed of the blows and how his body's reacting. But it looked like they had a conglomeration of him moving at super speed and her doing so too. But the cut in normal time and the glass is falling. And I'm like, no, you can't have all that.
Yeah. Like visually, when I first saw it, I was like, this is really cool. This is a cool looking scene. But I've gone back and watched it a couple times and I'm just like, as cool as it is, it doesn't work. Like it doesn't make sense the way the scene is set up. And even if Barry has a fraction of speed, just a fraction, enough to heal, he should be able to dodge those shards of glass, or the mirror, I should say, which we didn't see that as well. I'm just a little bit confused. And the thing is that as much as I love the ideas that Eric Wallace has, again, it comes down to the writing. And I think we've had some issues with that. I'm curious in the mirror dimension. So the mirrorverse, or the mirror world that they live in, why does it only reflect inanimate objects? Why is it non-organic materials that show up in the mirror world? And does something have to have a reflection to exist in the mirror world? Meaning, if there's a mirror in this room and you can see all the way to the edge of the door, but you can't see past the door, if I were to walk out of that door into a space with no reflection, is that an existing part of the world, or is it not part of the world? Because right now we see Iris walk away from Eva and go somewhere and then come back.
Right.
Like, where is she going? What are you doing? Like, do you have to eat? Or is there air in this world? Like, why does this mirror world not have anything? No animals, no moving things. Like, if I pick this glass up in a mirror, or this cup up and walk over here, in the mirror world, do you see a bottle of drink like just float by you? Like, how does that work? Because I don't understand the dynamics of this mirrorverse. Like, because if you can't eat, how do you live? Like, I don't.
Well, I'm trying to understand on a fundamental level, did Eva create a mirror world, or did she tap into an existing dimension? That's number one. Number two, everything you just said, how do the physics of it function? Because it doesn't make any sense if it's just a reflection of everything we have, because it should be exactly that if that's what it is. But it seems to be selective reflections.
Right.
It seems to be if she pulls people in it or whatever she needs. And, another thing is the lighting. Right. How does light move in a mirror universe? Is it moving? Because do you have a reflection of the sun?
Exactly. I thought the same thing.
So how is light moving, and then how is sound moving?
Right.
And all those.
And how is it 3-dimensional? A reflection is a 2-dimensional thing. Right. Like, how is it a 3-dimensional space?
It would have been a much more interesting story if they were struggling with 2D, and if part of what they had to deal with is that Eva had to create some tech to spend a lot of energy to make things 3D and have cohesion, but it still doesn't explain your organs. I can buy a 2D reflection in the same way I look at mine, but you're actually a thing because you're breathing and you're sleeping and you're emoting.
You can't reflect your organs. Your organs are inside of your body. So
and it should be reversed. If you're going to have them, you got to have your heart on the other side, just like in Prime Syndicate Earth.
Yeah.
Comics. I mean, so all of these.
Even further than that, because in the picture, the reflection that we see from the camera that Camilla had, you can see that Iris is a fractal prismatic reflection, or whatever they would call it, fractal reflection. And she looks like that from head to toe. And I'm okay with that. I'm like, all right, so she's reflection. Right. Except we've seen Mirror Iris change clothes. which means that she's actually wearing clothes. So if that reflection of her shows her as a reflection 100% from head to toe, that means that the clothes are not real either. They're reflective clothes. And Iris in the mirror dimension has not changed clothes, which means if that Iris is a reflection of our Iris, then she should be wearing that same outfit every single day until regular Iris changes clothes, which she hasn't done.
Well, so, it's the T1000 conundrum.
Yeah.
Because they say only living tissue will go and you can't bring anything dead. But when the T1000 morphs, his whole body morphs.
That's true.
All of that is liquid metal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So how are you saying that that's covered with flesh when it's clearly not?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's that kind of thing to where...
Which is also weird because if she's a reflection, how is she making T1000 hands out of her? Like she's supposed to be a reflection of Iris. And I can buy that. Okay, you're a reflection of Iris. That's the first hoop you want me to jump through. Got it. But then I'm also supposed to buy that it can morph into things that it's not reflective of, like sharp arms and like, you know, things like that. Like, where is that coming from? That's another power that we still haven't established. Can all of them do it? Because if they could do that from the beginning, then why was Iris running around snooping as a detective? She could have killed Sunshine. She could have fought any of these bad guys with her powers. Right. So why is she snooping around? If you can morph like that, that means that she could morph into another person, technically, and look like another person. So where does the power start and end? Like, how much can change and how much can't? It's another thing that just hasn't been explained.
Right. And on top of all that, because I agree with everything you just said, but on top of all that, the question then becomes, and I deal with it in FlashChat, there's so many shifting things in this episode that got on my nerves. My first shift is how they have Cecile read her. How does Mirror Iris develop independent emotions? And Cecile reads that,
right?
But she can't read the fact that ain't Iris.
Because you can see at the end, she's empty inside. There's nothing inside of that reflection. When she starts to break apart at the end of the episode, it's just a void inside of it. There's nothing there.
But we've had Cecile be so overwhelmed with emotion that she's been in a separate room and sometimes in a completely separate space.
Yeah.
It just becomes a wash. So Cecile is sometimes Deanna Troi and sometimes Jean Grey. Because sometimes she reads emotions and then sometimes she reads thoughts and motives. Those aren't the same powers.
No.
Empathy and telepathy is not the same powers. But also, if we're going to do that, it doesn't make any sense then. Eva kept saying that Mirror Iris is an extension of me. Mm-hmm. And they called her mother in this episode, and she's an extension of me. So they are basically using the snowflake principle that Iris is such a special snowflake that even a reflection of her develops morals and a conscience and a desire to live.
I didn't think about that. That is a good point.
Yeah, because immediately I said, are you trying to say that Camilla doesn't have any heart?
Or Sing?
Are you trying to say that Sing doesn't have any heart? Now, Sing in particular, he's one of the few characters on this show whose life even somewhat improved or went on a good path. Because most people on the show travel in circles and don't really progress and just go through pleasure. Yeah. But Sing actually got a stable home life, got a promotion. It looked like kind of his life was going in an upwards direction, and he seemed more chill once he stopped being police chief.
Yeah.
So I'm saying to myself, how does a man that's in that good of a space in his life, how does his heart not connect to his mirror reflection? Would he want to get back to his family and his life? But they're saying, no, just Iris. Iris is just such a snowflake until, even the reflection of her is so good.
Yeah.
That, she can't be bad for long.
Camilla sacrificed herself. The reflection of Camilla killed herself, basically.
But it was robotic.
Yeah.
It was very disconnected from anything. It was like she's still a part of the Board collective.
Yeah.
It was very...
like that, I could buy it. But you're right. Iris is not like that. She's like this completely separate thing from everybody else.
Just because she's Iris.
Yeah.
And again, it's the snowflake thing. They're trying to say that her heart is so special and she's so good and she's so this and she's so that till even, but Cecile, after all this time, after everything we've seen her do, should have known like that. That's not Iris. The minute she came out there, she'd been like, I don't even sense anything in here that's real or whatever. But now Mirror Iris has developed emotions. But then the second thing is that Eva seemed to be surprised by Mirror Iris's somewhat independence. Mm-hmm. And I'm saying to myself, you said all season long that this thing is a reflection of you or an extension of you or a part of you. So how do you not know When, if you're the boar queen, how do you not know when, Seven of West Allen is trying to build her own life?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I'm just like, no, I'm not buying it.
It's like, oh, my hand is moving on its own. What is it doing? I don't understand. Like, if it's an extension of you, you would know your hand is moving. Like, it wouldn't just move on its own with its own thoughts and feelings. Because technically, if you go by that standard, and that's what they've established, Mirror Iris is like a hand of Eva. It's not even a real person, technically. So, again, the snowflake thing that you brought up. So the hand all of a sudden decided it wanted to be independent of the body. Because that doesn't make a lot of sense. So another thing I'm curious about is we saw that Camilla was absorbed into this mirror dimension with a mirror gun, the old mirror gun that they had in Starchives, I guess. How did Singh get wrapped up in this? How did that even happen? Like, where would Singh have gone in the world that Eva would have thought I need to grab that person? Like, there's a million people that you could grab that would be way more useful than Singh, but you grab Singh, and then he's not even heavily involved in anything until halfway through the season, or halfway through this arc, I guess you could say, when he starts actually, like, trying to actively do her bidding. What was he doing? Was he just chilling at home? Like, I'm a mirror reflection. I'm just going to live my life for, like, 4 months, and then, how long has he been a mirror clone? Has he been a mirror clone as long as we've known him? Because she's been stuck in there for 6 years.
Right. Which is the length of the show.
Yeah.
So once again, they're moving her a little bit more. Like I said, Thawne is squarely in Norman Osborn territory as far as I'm concerned. But they took Eva there this episode because she was able, remember when she switches the prism detectors? She's able to move now through non-mirror surfaces, glass surfaces, or any surfaces. And then when she gets Bloodwork's thing, and that was the one bright spot for me, was Bloodwork. We'll get to that in a minute. But she had transdimensional teleportation power before that. And then when she got mixed in with his blood, I could maybe, I guess, understand the science of that. But now, being able to come out here, I can accept your power to jump in and out of mirrors. But she just teleported. She just disappeared. Yeah. So now she can literally be anywhere. They've shown to show her wherever she needs to be, she can just walk there in the mirror world, reach through the glass, and do what she wants to do. Like Luke catching the lightsaber and Rise of Skywalker is important, but I can interact with the physical world now. So I'm saying to myself, once again, when you just keep expanding the villain's powers to fit whatever you need the plot, then they lose meaning.
Yeah.
It has no meaning if she can just do whatever she can think of.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Not to sidetrack this episode, but I felt the same way about the Ragdoll situation where he all of a sudden became Plastic Man, an elongated man. That's not how his powers work.
I said backwards. I said that is not how contortionist powers work.
Right.
If you're a meta contortionist, you can't change your mass.
No, you can squeeze into things and squeeze under things, but you can't stretch your body. That's not what your powers are. Right. You can't make your hands large, like you said, increase your mass. Like when he went to grab, Allegra or whatever, he had like huge giant hands. I'm like, that's not how his powers work.
This Marvel, elongated man, Plastic Man, and Reed Richards. Thanks for stopping by. So,
So the same thing with you're saying here with the whole Mirror Master situation with Eva is just, and I asked the same thing to the live chat when I was streaming last week about this. I basically was saying, to me, I'm confused on how her mirror powers work. Like, if she can just freely move around, does she have to walk the distance in the mirror world? Like, for example, if I jump in a mirror here and I want to go to like Target down the street, do I have to walk to Target from here, or can I just jump through this mirror and then jump through that mirror somewhere there? Because the thing is, that would mean that you could stay in your mirror dimension and you could just go wherever you want to go anytime you want with that one big mirror, because she was using that mirror to look at anything. If you think about it, the mirror that was in her fake office or whatever, she was using that mirror to talk to her clones through all kinds of things, rear view mirrors on cars, bathroom shower mirrors or whatever. So exactly how does this work? And I don't understand. Like, again, if your powers, it makes her seem almost unbeatable to the level where I don't even understand how you would beat her, because her powers are so unexplained and so vague. Like, can you break mirrors? If you went into a room that had no mirrors in it, would that stop her from getting away? Like, have her jump through a mirror into a room with no mirrors? Or as long as she can see somewhere else through the mirrors in the mirror dimension, can she get out? I don't understand how her powers work. And it's so ridiculous.
How does light reflect off of mirrors again?
Yeah.
If anything made of a mirror is out here in human form, light would not bounce off it the same way it bounces off organic beings. But also, see, that's why, because you hear me say it all the time on Twitter, if you're going to use even comic booky science, just make it consistent comic book science, because we can buy that. For example, one of my favorite examples is Nightcrawler. Nightcrawler actually steps between dimensions. There's a sound and an escape of the air compressing as he steps out of this dimension, steps through his teleportation dimension, and reemerges. And that's how you get the BAMF effect. I completely accept that because it's compressed.
Yeah.
That's the whole idea, is that it's compressed between what it looks like out here. And his father could do it too. I can buy all that. But when you do like what she's doing, I'm like, just wait, just hold on just a second, because how does she know how to get there? And is it the same physical distance, but also, she created the mirror prism thing that Barry was using to give a false positive on Iris and a false negative on Iris and a false positive on Barry. How? Yeah. How exactly does that work? How exactly does a thing that is a mirror, how did you flip the polarity?
On top of that, if you replace the one, or you take it and you use it or whatever, and because some people were saying maybe she used one from her mirror world or whatever, that she replaced it with that one, then the device would be flipped. The numbers would be flipped, the readings would be flipped, everything would be flipped. So if they picked it up, say, for example, I pick it up and I'm using it here to read someone, like read Barry or whatever, I'm going to look at the screen and everything is going to be backwards. All of it's going to be backwards, because we see in stuff going on in the mirror world or whatever that all of it is reversed. And they talk about Iris getting headaches because everything is reversed. And she kind of sort of had to like focus on it and think about it or whatever. So if a screen on a device that's reading Barry is in the real world from the mirror dimension, it would be flipped around, which means that the people reading it would know right away that this is not their device. It'd be like reading, Scribble Scrabble on a screen, basically.
Well, normally that's the way they defeat mirror-based foes in the comics. They either see that your heart's on the wrong side of your chest, or what they do is they throw something at you and watch which hand you catch it with. That's like the oldest reveal trick in the book, that if you catch something with your left hand, then that's not you.
And Mirror Iris hasn't done that yet? I'm assuming that at some point she must have done something with another hand and they would have noticed, but I guess not.
Here's my thing. Here's my thing that as far as everything else we talked about, here's the biggest thing for me that just completely makes me reject the concepts. And that is that what she said tonight, I said a couple of weeks ago, they've been intimate for weeks now. So you're living with them. She cooks well, you're sleeping together, you're having your regular life.
She's speaking other languages.
And cooking some good pancakes, and she can't cook.
Yeah.
But it takes you all this time to put it together. And most people, see, that's the thing about how, like you talked about suspending disbelief, we can only go so far with it. Most people that have an intimate relationship, it doesn't take you much to know when your partner is off. Just think about it.
It is. It's true.
Their tone of voice. If they put on clothes they don't normally wear, if they get a new cologne or perfume.
Exactly.
If they want to go to places we don't normally go to. Or
their behavior changing when they wake up, when they go to bed, what they would do when they're away, like when they're gone, which is one of the things I said when Iris didn't show up for lunch with her father. That's not Iris. Right away, you'd be like, Iris doesn't miss appointments and stuff like that.
Clothes are off like that.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, we're a meat and potatoes family. Now I'm craving seafood. Now I'm craving, finer food, seafood, more expensive, all that kind of stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that. But it's just all of a sudden. So I'm saying anybody normal, anybody with a clue, it's the Lois Lane, Clark Kent glass. I'm Clark, I'm Superman. I'm Clark, I'm Superman, Dad. And you're an ace reporter in a building full of reporters. Okay. Chris Reeve convinces that it's possible.
Right.
One guy can convince you with enough acting that he's two separate dudes.
Right.
But when you're intimate with somebody like that,
every day you're living with them, you're in the same room with them. Yeah.
Kitchen etiquette, bathroom etiquette, laundry etiquette, trash etiquette is all the things that you don't think about until you see a discrepancy in the pattern.
Right.
And that would immediately alert you, be like, well, something is up. and I was just like, okay, so I'm like.
On top of that, does she mimic body heat? Or would she be cold like a mirror? Like, I don't understand. Would she feel like a person? Because I would think if she's a reflection, you would touch her and she would feel like a flat surface. She wouldn't have anything on her or whatever. Because you saw in the camera that she is smooth. She's literally just a reflective mirror image of Iris. You would think with her and Barry being so close that he would have at least put his hand on her at some point and known that she's not a human or there's something else going on.
What they did was they conferred basically Terminator qualities to mirror Iris. Because in T2, Arnold says, the more exposure I have to humans, the more I learn. My CPU is switched to learn or whatever. And then at the end, he says, I know now why you cry, but it's something I could never do. So he's basically grown in his understanding of the human soul because of his time with John. That was the idea. So that's what they've done here, except that it doesn't make any sense in the context of Eva saying...
She's not a robot, and Iris is part of Eva.
Right, exactly. That you're a part of me, and you're just a reflection, and blah, 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 blah. But again, it's the snowflake thing.
How does she have Iris's memories? How does Mirror Iris know what Iris knows? That's not a reflection either. That's not a reflection of her.
Right.
That's in her brain.
Right. How would she know, and how would she know how to respond or react to a whole bunch of things? And then, on top of all that, since we talked about Cole, let's talk about Caitlin's scene.
Okay, yeah.
You know that Danielle had to, take some time off to have her baby and all that. And congratulations on that. And what I was thinking when I saw that scene is that it's always, a Team B scene, because that Flash now is split into different teams having different adventures. Very rarely is it just the A storyline anymore. But this was the first time, and I mean the first time, where I would have been okay with a Killer Frost spinoff. All up until this point, I was like, Caitlin needs to be on this show. Because what is the Flash without Caitlin? I still believe that. But at this point, I'm like, if y'all gonna keep giving her side adventures, and if Danielle had to drop out for a while anyway, and now you just set up a whole nother arc. You just set up the fact that this light bullet has pierced her physiology in such a way until her cold powers can't heal it. And her knowledge of science and her cold powers, she doesn't know what to do. So now we got to go back to the mom. Guaranteed that's going to result in some type of upgrade for Killer Frost.
Yeah.
The time she comes out of this, she's going to be able to do something she wasn't able to do before. I would rather see that separately and just follow that and track that.
Yeah.
Because now it's like vignettes in the middle. You know what I'm saying? So,
in this episode in particular, after it was over with, I thought, as much as I love the Killer Frost scenes with Cisco and Ralph, either give me an episode with more of that, or don't give me so little, because it was so little of it in this episode. And I'm like, I wanted more of it. It was almost forgettable in context to what was going on with the Barry and Iris stuff, because it just kind of, I think it was less than 5 minutes of the episode, that total Killer Frost side story. And they do Caitlin so dirty, because you talk about a story not making sense over years. Killer Frost, that story has been retconned and slapped against the wall and rewritten and just everything under the sun. What is that story? Is she a metahuman? Is she a ice goddess? Is she a separate personality? Is she a flip of Caitlin's personality? What are they connected? Are they not connected? Can they talk in their head? Do they have to write notes? Do they know what the other person knows? Because sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Like, it's the most.
Yeah, all of those questions. I asked all them questions almost verbatim, and I'm like, okay, y'all messed up when you showed us baby Caitlin or baby Killer Frost. When we saw that as a child, she has a bike accident, and the stress of that causes her to frost out, because that changes everything you said.
Yeah.
So then you kind of want to retcon it to say she's a result of her father's illegal and immoral frost experience, and this kind of thing. I was like, okay, but that's not how you set her up. You set her up as a split personality that's activated like the Hulk is activated inside of Bruce Banner.
And I'm okay with that if that's the way the rules are. The rules are,
But her personality is different. She's not Caitlin. And the thing I liked about Killer Frost the most, I liked whatever season they had Saboteur, when she finally fully frosted out. The thing I liked the most is that she was the only character on the show that told the uncut truth. Nobody told the truth like Killer Frost. She just put it out there. It was raw, it was uncut, she was unapologetic, and that was almost her defining trait. Because when Killer Frost came out, if something was lame, she was going to call it out.
Yeah.
So I'm like, she's not the same person. They may be living in the same body, but y'all may have made it clear this is a separate personality.
Right.
So now they've retconned that, and now they're trying to merge them so hard. And I'm saying to myself, what you said, I'm like, well, what is the point of this story? What are you trying to say? What is about Caitlyn's heart? Is this about her mind? Is this about an evil inheritance from her father? Which I'm good with any one of those.
Right.
You can't have all those.
No. And sometimes it gets retconned in a weird way. Like we're looking at this episode, and I see that it's Caitlyn, but it's also Frost, and they're trying to heal and this, that, and the other and whatnot. Usually, if there's something that's too heavy for Caitlyn to handle, Frost kicks in and takes over because she knows that Caitlyn sometimes can't deal with all the stress, and so that's the reaction to it or whatever. But it looks now like they're trying to make Frost and Caitlyn one character again. And I say again, because if you jump all the way back, like 2.5 seasons, when Caitlyn and Killer Frost come back to the funeral and talk to Cisco and all the other characters at the very end of the season, they say, well, what are you? Are you Caitlyn or Frost? And she's like, no, I'm something else. And I'm like, oh, so they're trying to combine the personalities together. But then come season 4, we went back to them being split personalities again, where they're not together anymore. And so are we going that direction again? Or when did that split happen?
At the funeral, she has the white hair, which has Caitlyn's eyes.
Yeah.
She does not have the blue lip. That's the mark of Killer Frost, the eyes and the lips with the hair.
Right.
And she says, Cisco, let me go.
Yeah.
But basically, that was the beginning, we thought, of her discovery journey. That I have to find out what I am now.
And I was ready for it. I was like, this is going to be good.
It was going to be awesome. That's what I mean when I say this is the first time I'm finally willing, because I love Snowberry. I've made no secret of that. But this is the first time I was finally willing. I was like, you know what? I want to follow Caitlyn's adventures. I want to follow what she's going through.
Give us a Frost show. Give us a Frost show.
Right. Even if it's a miniseries.
Yeah.
I want to see her have to deal with everything she has to deal with, because the other thing I keep saying all the time is that as much as I love Caitlyn, she's a felon. People keep forgetting that Julian had the records, and Barry convinced him to not expose her or prosecute her, and Barry sacrificed his job to make sure Caitlyn didn't have to go to jail.
And now he's working again, and she's still not in jail.
But they would still have, when you're a wanted and when you're a known face, they would still have all that. So I'm saying to myself, they keep forgetting that Killer Frost is still wanted. Plus, she spent all that time with Amunet in the underworld.
Yeah,
you got to catch up at some point.
So let me ask you this then, with the Killer Frost thing. We're going to follow that for a second because I do have a question. So, and I've said this about Wells as well. But first of all, does CCPD know that Killer Frost is Caitlyn? Do they know that? And if they do know that, does that affect their ability to take her in? And if they don't know that, then why haven't they taken her in? Like, that's the question I have. Like, are the police department aware of her secret identity? Because I don't think they are. So as far as they're concerned, Killer Frost is still a fugitive.
No, yes, they know, because Julian know, but it was in the system.
Okay. So they are aware. So they are aware then. Okay.
Here's the thing. You got to look at Singh like Commissioner Gordon. He's the Commissioner Gordon of the Flash.
Right.
The only way Batman can operate the way he does without police interference is because Gordon tells them to stay off him and kind of give him space, because everything Batman does is illegal because he's a vigilante. So if Gordon wasn't there, just like in Dark Knight Returns, when Gordon finally retires, the cops turn on Batman right away, because they're like, you can't take the law in your own hands. Same thing happens in The Dark Knight. Right. Well, that's what Singh has been doing, because he's known Barry was a Flash for a while. Because who doesn't know that Barry?
Right. Yeah. I figured that.
Wow, Singh has been allowing sawlaws, because every single thing they do is wrong, starting with the pipeline. That's cruel and unusual punishment. That's y'all being judge, jury, and execution. That's you putting people in a 3x5 box and letting them pee win, letting them eat win. You can't do that. You can't do any of that.
Right.
You're cops, and they know that.
Right.
So Singh has kept the heat off of Team Flash all this time, and then moved Joe into that position for that very reason.
So fake Singh could have easily just flipped the script on that. If she's going to take over Singh, and Eva wanted him to do something, all he has to do is release all that information, and guess what?
I wish I could.
They're all yeah. So that's a bigger use of his power than whatever it was she's been doing with him recently. Because, I mean, having access to everything, she might as well have just mirrified Joe. Because that would have been more useful to you.
Comic book villains, unless they're written well, take simple things and make them hard. They have convoluted plots, okay? But if it was like a real life thing, you know, when you have the hero tied and bound, you take off his mask, you shoot him.
Yeah.
You know, end of conversation. So what I'm looking at, the same way that Eva she wasn't defeated, but Iris basically went Batman on her and went psychological and said, you know, you still love him. You love him. I know you love him. I'm saying to myself, are y'all like 12? You love him. Like, why do you call him your husband? It felt very adolescent, like two sisters are in the bedroom. And, you know, you told me you broke up with him, but you really didn't. I know you didn't. I know you're still with him. And how dare you call me out? How dare you judge me? It felt very much like that. I can buy that from teenagers. These are grown women talking about, well, you still call him your husband, and I know you love him, and I want him dead, and no, you don't. Really? And so that was enough to break down this hardened, intelligent, super genius woman that's been trapped in Mirrorland for 6 years, and all of a sudden you say, oh my God, and she can't face how she really is.
That's crazy. Well, and thinking about this now, you were talking about how villains always find the hardest way to do something.
Yes.
So I'm thinking back, and I'm probably gonna have to watch the season back once it ends to kind of get a full idea of this. But if Iris and any of the mirror clones can go T1000, basically make their arms into shards, they're faster, they're stronger, they're bulletproof, I guess. I mean, I would assume that they are because they don't have blood, so I'm guessing they're bulletproof as well. So why didn't Eva just go, you know what? I need this item from this building. Go get it for me. Who's gonna stop them? I mean, they have access to all these powers. The black hole metas aren't going to stop them. Sunshine wouldn't have been able to do anything to mirror Iris or mirror Camilla for that point. So why would they even worry about that? Because they're all cowering back like 2 episodes ago, hiding from her, 3 episodes ago, whenever it was, hiding from her, and she couldn't do anything to them. Killer Frost was probably the only hero that could really screw with the Mirrorverse characters because she could shatter them probably. Like and now she's out of commission for a while. So I guess there's no, we're not going to, she's not even going to be able to help them. Because I do believe a while back, in order to get into the mirror or to let Barry out of the mirror, they had to do the freezing thing. And Iris brought that up when she first got brought into the mirror. So I guess Frost is not going to be able to help him with
Frost is the absolute zero thing.
Yeah.
She's still in Caitlin form, but the powers are coming out of her.
Yeah.
So that was the absolute zero thing. But keying in on something that you said earlier, in terms of basically her having minions, and why don't they do stuff for her? Because again, are they part of a Bohr collective? Are they a hive mind? Are they controlled that way? Are they independent units? Because they've just proven they could be both. The question for me becomes there, like you said with Frost, it goes back to, why don't you following the more interesting storyline thread? Because what you just said would be an incredible episode.
Yeah.
So let's say, even if you want to write it in that Caitlin's not 100%, but she's going out there even at 50, 75% because she can freeze them. And she can freeze them and make them brittle like she could anything else. And, shatter, that's the only thing, and all of a sudden they're afraid. How would Eva deal with that?
Right.
And don't we want a mirror Killer Frost? Think about it.
Yeah. What if mirror clones get the meta powers? Because if they do, you could have a whole army of mirror metahumans. And
what if she's just evil? What if she's not balanced by Caitlin's goodness? What if she has a different dimension to her powers? What if? That again, that's what I'm saying. That's the story I want to see. That's the story I don't want.
You could split them up. You could have 2 separate ones. You could have Caitlin and you could have Frost as 2 separate people, technically.
Right. Just all the things we thought we were going to see in the main storyline that never happened.
Yeah.
But a Killer Frost from the mirror dimension, based on what we saw in this episode, would be unstoppable.
Right.
How would you beat her?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because
so many good questions that could have been unraveled, and we just they're not going to happen. They're not going to follow them.
They're not going to happen.
But this episode, Liberation, I think it's one of, like, in terms of like character development, you got a lot of really good moments, but I think as a whole episode, the more you think about it, the more it sort of feels a bit disjointed, I think, going back and looking at it.
You're being nice when you say a bit disjointed. It's very disjointed.
Well, I wonder what this, leading up to this next episode, technically now the penultimate episode, because we're at episode 18 or whatever. I wonder if Iris or any of our characters are going to again resolve this by the end of the season. I don't think they are. I think we're going to be dealing with this all the way till episode 19. And I think Reverse Flash, maybe Eobard Thawne was going to play a role in the last 3 episodes of the season, because he's floating around. He's out there just floating around as energy. Also, do you think they're going to be able to time travel with the new Speed Force?
I think they will, but time travel, again, as a concept, is almost 100% problematic.
Yeah, it is. You're right.
I'll give it 95, because everything about time travel as a concept creates so many paradoxes and so many what ifs and so many things that you can't be resolved. And I wanted to go back to something you said earlier.
Go ahead,
about how, based on what we've seen, the Flash of every world no longer has Speed Force power, since we assume it was a single entity that powered all the multiverse.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that the writing style is that they don't deal with things until the characters know.
Right.
Not when the audience knows.
Right.
Sometimes we are 5 and 6 episodes ahead of the characters.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't become a thing until the characters become aware.
Right.
But that being the case, that's what I think is going to happen here. If we get some more powers like that, it's going to be the same thing as before, in terms of Barry's going to be tempted to alter some events, and Iris will probably talk him into, at least go get Nora for me. Why can't we have Nora? I don't want to take a chance on getting pregnant and it's not her. I want her, and different kind of stuff. And Barry's going to, again, do some dumb stuff. And then Eobard will have been counting on him doing that dumb stuff, and will have already set up whatever he planned to set up. And that's another thing. We still haven't fully seen Eobard's world. That's something I
wish we could. I want to see it so badly.
But I mean, from season 1,
I
was like, show us where he comes from. Show us his lab. Show us his other experiments.
Because we know that he's extremely smart. He's one of the smartest characters next to like Wells, I think, on the show. Yeah. So
another thing, I think they finally played out the Council of the Circle of Wells thing. I think they know that, because Nash is almost now a non-character.
Can we talk about the fact, let's talk about that for a second. How is it that ever since we dealt with the face changer or whatever they did with the Wells characters, why is it now that Wells can just walk around openly in public and no one cares? Because we never truly addressed that. Part of the reason why the whole Savitar thing worked is because we had the face changing technology that made them look like someone else. And we had, Wells created that technology so they could go out, or they used that technology so he could go out and do things in the real world without being spotted as Harrison Wells.
Right.
Well, now we've had a couple of Wells since then, maybe more than a handful, that have just been out and about in Central City, and no one's noticed them as being Harrison Wells. Like Nash Wells looks like Wells. He's not doing a very good job of hiding it, but he's out there running around. And as far as everybody still remembers, and as far as we know, even with the recreation of the multiverse, the storyline with Wells and how that all went down, it still happened the same way, which means that Harrison Wells should still be a fugitive technically, or to everyone else dead technically in the new world. So now we have Wells running around like there's nothing going on. These are things that bug me. Like I think about it all the time when I'm watching the show. I'm like, how is he at Jitters as Wells? How is he there? People would know who he is.
That's right. People would definitely know who he is, because he's the man that caused the biggest tragedy in the history of Central City.
Yeah.
The man that changed so many lives, and, dark matter and that whole thing. So they would definitely know who he is. But remember, in the first season, they made a point of saying that. When it was Eobard Wells, he was in the wheelchair, they made a point of talking about how, at the police station, when he's out and about, on the TV reports, everywhere he goes, people are always giving him that side eye because of what happened with the accelerator. So people wouldn't forget that. 5, 6 years later, people wouldn't be like, la, okay, I guess we're just going to gloss over that now.
Yeah.
And there's that. And
do you think Nash is as smart as the other Wells? Do you think that this Nash is as smart as the rest of them? Or...
Well, they keep giving him an Achilles heel with a daughter figure. So I liked Harry the best, even though his relationship with Jesse.
I love Harry.
His relationship with Jesse was so creepy. I needed a new word for creepy. But I still loved him as a character.
Yeah.
But I'm saying there's nothing that this version of Wales brings to the table that we haven't really seen before and better. So they tried to make him an Indiana Jones type.
Yeah.
That worked somewhat, I guess, maybe up until Pariah. But unless you have him out there actively seeking archaeological treasures, he doesn't really do much.
What is he doing right now? Is he just hanging around the lab? Like, what is happening?
He doesn't really do much. It doesn't really do anything different. He just kind of chimes in.
And you would think with the amount of knowledge he has on the old multiverse, you would use him all the time.
That's the other thing. Now, I think that's going to come into play when we finally get to Stargirl, because as you said, Stargirl is going to replace the Flash real soon here. But I forgot now, how many episodes of Stargirl do they have in the can? What are they saying?
I think there's 13 episodes.
13, okay.
Yeah, yeah. That's the last time I saw. But luckily WB sent out promos for some of us to see, and I've seen the first 3 episodes of it already. I think it's amazing. It is so comic book. It's a breath of fresh air. It feels like season 1 of The Flash mixed with all the best elements of Supergirl, all the best elements of Legends of Tomorrow. It's just
wow.
The first 3 episodes, I was totally engaged. It does not, and I know we're talking about The Flash, but just in a nutshell, it feels like its own thing. It's the cinematography and the quality of the show is much higher than any of the shows we have right now. Special effects are much higher. I feel like they went 120% into the show. I mean, it's really, the first 3 episodes are really good, and I honestly can't wait to see like the rest of it. The first 2 episodes feel like one long episode because it's kind of like set up that way. And then the 3rd episode, you get more character development, stuff like that. But people are going to be surprised. This takes the best elements of like the Golden Age characters and mixes it with the modern characters, and it does it in a way that reminds me of like 80s, like Goonies and things like that. It's very much like along that lines of like building with that world. There's no weird tropey love stories. They don't have the normal setup stuff that you get with the CW shows with the characters and things like that. It feels so different. And I think that's probably because it wasn't initially going to be, I think they marketed it to CW, but then CW said no. So then they put it over on DC Universe. They filmed the whole thing for DC Universe. And then the CW was like, wait a minute, we changed our mind. We want it back now. So yeah, no, I think it's absolutely, it's going to be great. And I can't wait for it to come in because I feel like after the season of The Flash, people are going to want something different. So.
Well, that's high praise indeed. I mean, that really helps me determine whether or not I was going to watch it. Because I was like, if it's going to just be a repeat of everything we've seen before, we've got all that. But
yeah,
it made sense if they filmed it for DC Universe because they would take more time. Whoops, I lost you. I lost DJ Eric. Oh, well, that was a great convo. I loved having him on. We're going to have to do more of that. I hope he pops back up. But anyway, that was incredible. And I loved it. So we're going to have to do some more of that for sure. So that's it for today's episode of Flash Chat. I went kind of long, but we had the guests on the live stream, and it was awesome. So join me next Tuesday because there's a new episode tonight featuring Godspeed. And then I'll be live streaming as well as doing the Flash Chat online. All right. Thanks so much, and I'll see you on the next episode of Flash Chat.